Hey everybody, this is the Rundown podcast show number 1. I am Joe, this is Felipe, and this is your bi-weekly MLB or random, maybe in the off-season, wrap-up, roundup show for you guys to know what's going on, share your hot takes, our cold takes. So let's get right into it. The playoff race is heating up. There's about, 5 weeks left into the season?
Just about, something like that.
Just about, right? And we saw some shuffling in the standings today. The Seattle Mariners, we'll start with them because they are, for the first time in 20 years, alone in first place in the race, in the playoff race. So what do you what take do you have for the Mariners?
I mean, exciting time for us since we live in Seattle. That's our team. That's our home team. So super exciting time for us. I think super exciting time for all Mariners fans, all the Mariner people out there. They took first place, like Joe said. Texas has been slumping big time. 1-9.
1-9
in their last 10.
Yep.
I think about a month ago the Mariners were 10 games back.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible feat for that team. And on paper, I would say that this Mariners team, if you look at it on paper, I think as just a casual fan, you see some of these names like Canzone and Caballero and Dylan Moore and stuff. You don't think that those guys are daily contributors, but they have been for this team. Mm-hmm. They've been red hot, and we haven't even mentioned about the pitching staff. The pitching staff is probably as elite as you can get.
Yeah. Starting
pitching.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that their pitching staff is very young, right?
Yeah.
So they might be prone to mistakes in those big games. But as of now, they seem like they're really stepping up to the plate as far as the starters go. Kirby and Gilbert and Castillo, you can't really find a better 1-2-3 punch in the league right now.
Yeah, and you can't forget Houston.
No, never. Right. You can't never.
They've been seven straight.
Yeah.
ALCS appearances.
Yeah, six.
Sorry, yeah. 6. They're the reigning World Series champs. Mm-hmm. They pretty much have their core all the way back. They're still getting healthy, right? They've been injured, I would say, most of the season. They've missed Alvarez multiple games. Altuve's been out. Mm-hmm. Multiple pitching injuries. But they're all within the game.
Yeah.
They're all within the game. And the most interesting part about all this, especially for Seattle, is that their last 10 games go series against Texas, series against Houston, and then series against Texas again.
Yeah, that's going to be a really tough finish to the season. I think the Mariners currently, as far as strength of schedule goes, it's the Mariners have the second hardest strength of schedule to end the season. The Rangers actually have the hardest strength of schedule as far as the AL West race goes. Updated fan graphs, playoff percentage to win the division. The fan graphs have the Astros at 40.4% to win the division, Mariners at 40.7%. So dead heat right there. They basically have the Mariners and Astros within a percentage point of each other to win the division, and clinch the wild card. So it's going to be a really, really close race. They are not as bullish on the Rangers. Only 18.9% chance to win the division and 64.8% chance to make the playoffs, while the Astros and Mariners are around 85% within a percentage point of each other.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting just because none of these teams right now can really afford to go on any sort of losing streak.
Yeah.
I think that really will cost any of them. They're just so close right now.
Yeah.
And because one has a harder strength of schedule and one has a weaker one, and there's so much offsetting things that anything that goes in any direction really can set the tone for the rest of the season for all three of these teams.
Right.
But again, moving on to in terms of other playoff races, Minnesota's got it locked. I mean, that AL Central is so weak, weak. I'm bearing any incredible collapse. Maybe Cleveland can step up, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. But the AL East is a close race. The Rays are only 2 games behind the Orioles now. What's your take? Who's going to win the division there?
You know I'm a big Florida man. So I'm rooting for the Rays. But Baltimore has had such a young, great core and role players that I see it tough for them to catch. Even if the Rays do play well, I see Baltimore just continuing to play out their season how it has been, which has been very, very strong.
Yeah. But the thing is, they've got a really young team too, right? Just like the Mariners, the Orioles have a really young team, so we'll see how they can last down the stretch, because the majority of them have never been there before. While the Rays, you talk about what you want about their spending, they've been there. They've been to the World Series recently, right? So, Fangraphs both have them really close together as far as percentage to make the playoffs. But the Orioles, they have the Orioles to win the division at 62%. And the Rays at 37%. However, they kind of flip-flop in their percentages to win the World Series. They say if the Rays win make the playoffs, they have a 9.1% chance of winning the World Series, while the Orioles only have 4.5% chance. So, what do you think about that?
I think it goes back to what you just said, that the experience that the Rays have had kind of being in the playoffs for the last few years, and they've got these guys that kind of know what it takes to get there. But they always have the chip on their shoulder. They're a small market team, so they don't have a lot of big contracts on that team. So it's a lot of like prove it and make it kind of guys. Whereas Baltimore's very young, right? They had that surge last year. They just missed the playoffs. They're kind of like the Mariners a little bit. The Mariners just had a little bit of an edge. But when they do get there in high pressure situations, the crowd's roaring, whether they're in Baltimore or somewhere else. We've seen historically those teams kind of crumble a little bit. And I feel like Tampa has that edge in terms of experience and knowing how to deal with pressure situations. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they play in the next 4 weeks. I really think either one could win the division. I think both of them make the playoffs, though. One of them is going to be a wild card 100%.
So let's move on to a race that's not as tight as the ones that we've seen in the AL. The Braves in the NL East, they've currently got a 12.5 game lead over the Phillies. And the Phillies, they're probably going to make the playoffs, right? They're currently 72 and 58. They've got a great record, right? In any other division,
that would win the division in the AL Central.
In the AL Central, right? And they would be in it in almost any other division, right? But the Braves, do you think they're going to have, they're going to keep that momentum going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're built so well. They've constructed this team in such a genius fashion. They're still super, super young. They have great talent. I mean, we with Acuna, Albies, Matt Olson. They have great pitching. They're the most complete team to me. They're my pick to win the World Series. Right now. They've had the most complete season out of all the teams. They're cruising right now. That division is a lock, as is, I would say, most of the NL divisions. If we move to the NL West, Dodgers have a pretty commanding lead. And in the NL Central, the Brewers have won 8 games in a row now.
They've been hot.
They're good. I wouldn't count out the Cubs just yet because they've been surging. But I'm not sure if they can keep that up. We'll see. We'll see. I'm a little bit surprised about the Cubs, actually. A little bit. Just how well they've been playing, how well they've meshed up until this point. I would have thought maybe a different team would have risen up. But we'll see. I think the NL divisions are kind of locked. What's more interesting is the National League wild card. There's so many teams in this. Phillies, Cubs, the Reds, San Francisco.
So currently, the Phillies and the Diamondbacks and the Cubs have playoff spots if the season ended today. The Giants are 1.5 games back. The Reds also 1.5 games back. And the Marlins 3 games back. So you have a good 6 teams really vying for those 3 spots right next to each other.
Yeah, and I think any of those teams deserve it. They've played great. And don't count out the Marlins. Go Fish. Okay, I'm not only a Mariners fan, I'm also a Marlins fan. Okay, they've also surprised me too of how well they've been playing. They've got a lot of young guys that kind of have a little bit unknown, and especially with Sandy Alcantara not pitching to his Cy Young performance last year, which is surprising to most. He's struggled a lot, but they've got some really young arms that have kind of pulled that weight They made some moves at the trade deadline to get Josh Bell. He's 7-8 home runs since the deadline.
Yeah.
So he's really propelled that offense to something better. They're just hanging in there. It'll be tough for them to get in, but they're hanging in.
Yeah.
And you never know. You just never know when it comes to September.
Yeah.
People collapse. People rise up. You just never know with some of these teams.
You never know. And I think for me personally, the biggest surprise to me are the Reds, right? The Reds, as far as, we saw last year, big sellers, right? They got rid of a few of their stars. People didn't think that they were going to compete at all. Currently 68 and 64 and in the thick of it in the wild card race. It'll be interesting to see how they end the season. But Ellie De La Cruz, huge spark plug playmaker, really, really at such a young age, really doing his best for that city and, being that catalyst for their success this year.
Yeah, and he reminds me of the young shortstop over the Pirates. O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah, O'Neal Cruz.
Both huge arms at the shortstop position. I think you might starting to see that position mold into like a bigger, slender guy with a young. You've got two future guys of the MLB, both in the NL Central.
Yeah.
So it'll be really fun to watch these guys develop and grow as stars in this league.
Yeah.
But behind him, they've got a great future. And they've got a lot of playmakers around it.
Yeah.
I think they'll get some pieces once they get to the point where they feel like they can contend. They can trade for some pieces. I would watch out for the Reds in the future.
Yeah. Let's look at the Fangraphs projections. The Phillies, they have at 93.6% to make the playoffs. Diamondbacks at 56.3%. We saw our friend Paul Sewald go there. Hopefully he gets some playoff time come the end of the season. They're at 56.3%. The Giants at 44.9% chance to make the playoffs. The Cubs 64.2%. So, they like the Cubs.
Yeah, and apparently I do too.
Apparently
I'm wearing this Cubs hat. Not even a big, huge Cubs fan. It's my gym hat is what it is, and I like to sweat in hats that I don't like. Yeah. So, but apparently I like the Cubs. It's working. I've been wearing this hat almost every day now.
You're sending them good vibes.
Yeah, they're playing out of their minds right now. So maybe I should take it off.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But they also have the Marlins and Reds at about 20% chance to make the playoffs. And the Padres, they give them a 2.6% chance. But, let's talk about them for a second, right? They have... the second biggest payroll in the league off the top of my mind. I think the Mets had a higher payroll. Second biggest payroll in the league. Just on paper, they have one of the best lineups, a great rotation, great players, stars with, Snell, Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Hader, Tatis, Machado, Soto, Kim, right? Cronenworth. We go on and on and on. What position do they not have a star at?
Yeah.
And yet, what are they sitting at? They're 61 and 70. They have to be. They're my pick for probably the biggest surprise this year.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't even say biggest surprise. I think biggest embarrassment of a team, and not because they're bad. They literally have a star at every position. Yeah. I think this is one of those moments in sports in general where you really talk about the value of chemistry.
Yeah.
Right? Chemistry is so underrated, especially in a team that's very individualistic in some ways, especially in the sport of baseball where it's really just you hitting, right?
Yeah.
The ball comes to you and then you field it and you throw it. Yeah. You're the one that's pitching against the batter, right? Yeah. But there's so many intricate things within the game that involve chemistry that people don't really think about. Mm-hmm. And the Padres are such a great example of that. I don't think they have any chemistry. There's no fluid player-to-player kind of vibes there where you really, on paper, this team should be contending for a World Series, and that's it. Yeah. Right? It's not, let's get to the playoffs. No. This team should be contending for a World Series, and they're not. And the only thing that is missing, to me, is chemistry.
Yeah. I completely agree, right? You have a group of guys, and even on paper, individually, they might be great all-world players, but they have to want to play with each other, for each other, right? So there's something missing there. Maybe, Bob Melvin, maybe he's not really that motivator. Maybe that he's not that guy anymore to be that, coach that these players need. But,
and he's a great manager.
He's a great manager. Historically, he took a lot of
of those
A's teams to the playoffs.
No business.
Right?
Yeah. Low market team again. Moneyball.
Yeah, Moneyball. So something's got to give down there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, and it's not like they're veteran players either. Soto's still really young.
Yeah.
Tatis is still really young. A lot of these guys are really, really young. They still have years ahead of service in the MLB. Mm-hmm. And part of me wants to think, and I was just thinking about this now, part of me wants to kind of have... Machado's been around in this league for a while, right? That should be a leader role. He's there. He plays every day. He's your everyday third baseman. He's been in the league for a while. That, where is the leadership to be able to... round up these guys and say we've got to be better. I mean, it's too late for them now. But if they're gonna run it back with the same similar group next year, there has to be someone that steps up in that squad and be like, "Yo, this isn't cutting it." Because, I mean, if I'm a Padres fan, I'm burning my jersey right now. You spend all this money, you get all this star power to contend with basically the Dodgers, right? And you're not even close.
No, nowhere close. And it's Machado. He's always been a great player, and that's not a question. There's no question about his ability, but it just seems like as far as personality goes, he's kind of a little kind of low key, right? He's not the yeller, the motivator. He's not like a Derek Jeter type, Chipper Jones type, right? He's not out there yelling at his teammates to motivate them to come together, right? So
I will say he's matured a little bit. I think the young Machado that we saw in Baltimore, and maybe even a little bit in his beginning part as a Dodger, but was very mature, and we saw how many fights he started all the time and whatnot. But I think he's matured into that player, but I don't think he's, like you said, he's not that guy. Right?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So let's move into, after that, our power rankings here. We have on the screen our, the leaderboard, the standings of all the MLB. So let's go with you first. Who is your number 10 team in your power rankings?
Yeah, so I put this together just a little bit, and this is obviously my opinion. I think everybody else is going to have something a little bit different. This is just from what I've seen and what I've observed throughout the seasons up until this point in power rankings right now. Atlanta number 1, like we said, best record. I mean, they're just kind of, that offense is unstoppable. It'll be interesting to see in playoffs when pitching really matters, if that offense can continue. But Atlanta to me is number 1. Dodgers, they're close second. I don't think record-wise they match up quite as nicely, but they're the Dodgers, right? They've been dominant in the NL West and in the National League for the last around 10 years. And they're going to cruise into the playoffs once again. So that's an easy number 2. These next 3 kind of bounce back a little bit, but I have Baltimore at number 3. They've had a strong season so far. They lead the AL East. They're young, young team, but a real mature team for being a young team in the regular season so far. So I have them at 3. Number 4, close, right? Because they're within 2 games. Tampa Bay. 8-2 in their last 10. They're sticking in there even with all the off-field issues with Wander Franco and all that stuff. We don't have to get that into it right now. But they're a close 4, and that can easily flip. Those were the 2 that I was kind of like, let's see where they are in the standings. I think Tampa could easily be a number 3 if they're a little closer.
So that's where I disagree with you here. I think I would put Tampa Bay at 3 and then Baltimore at 4. Just because they've seemed to kind of really battle through that adversity with Wander Franco, and they've been there before, so they have that experience. I think if Baltimore and Tampa Bay have to go to game 163 to figure out who wins the division, I don't know if they do that anymore. Do they still do that? They do.
They do.
I think Tampa Bay comes ahead.
And the crazy part is I actually agree with you. I think if it comes to 163, Tampa wins that game. But I'm saying right now today, Baltimore takes 3. Baltimore 4. But I actually do agree with you, which is interesting. Now moving to 5, Milwaukee, the Brewers won 8 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've been playing lights out. They're kind of a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Just as well how well they're playing. I'm not sure if they're big of a surprise of they're taking the division, but just of how strong they're playing right now. So I have them at number 5. And then number 6, Seattle Mariners.
Okay.
Hottest team since the All-Star break. Okay. 9-1. They've won three now in a row.
Yeah.
Before that, they had an 8-game winning streak.
Yeah.
They've just been going on winning streak after winning streak after winning streak. Now, granted, they've played the Royals twice now. Yeah. They've played the White Sox. They've had an easy schedule, but they're taking care of business.
They are,
right?
And that's something that we didn't see from them in the beginning of the season. They were kind of playing down to their competition,
which is such a Mariner thing.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. But now it seems like they're in it close against really good teams like the Orioles. Right during that span, the Mariners lost 4 games. The last 4 games they lost, they were all in either extra innings or within 1 or 2 runs.
Yeah.
Right. So I think another disagreement there. I think I have Seattle at 5 and Milwaukee at 6, but just because I like kind of the breadth of work and the team composition, I really like how Seattle's built as far as the pitching goes, and the fact that Seattle's just a little bit better. I know it's only 1 game, and maybe this is my bias coming out, just 1 game better in the last 10 than Milwaukee, but Milwaukee is playing great. In the standings, as far as win percentage goes, it goes Atlanta, Orioles, Dodgers, Rays, and then Mariners at 5, Brewers at 6. So the Mariners are 1 game ahead of Milwaukee in the whole season, but that's basically the same 6 as what we have, right?
And I do knock the Mariners. You know, I love, we're obviously local Seattleites.
Yeah.
Love the Mariners. But you know me as a baseball fan, I like to try to keep it as neutral as possible, in my opinions, as much as you don't like it when we go to games, right? But I do knock them for their strength of schedule.
Yeah,
right?
It has been easy.
And Milwaukee just a few days ago, they came off a sweep of Texas.
They did,
right?
yes.
And yes, Texas has been struggling, but they also have been great up until the last 2 weeks.
To be fair, and we'll get to Texas, but to be fair, they have been playing good teams, teams with winning records.
So that's the only reason I knock them there. But next, Houston. Houston, I believe 4-6 in their last 10. Not great, but enough to hang in there to get the 7. I'm a little unsure about them going forward. I'm not for the first time in a while.
They haven't been bulletproof as bulletproof as they seem, invulnerable as they seem like in the past, right? It seems like in the past people couldn't beat them. Yeah. Right?
But you were just so sure about Houston. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm just saying that I'm a little confused into where I project them to be, right? Yeah. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't know if they're, like you said, that unstoppable force, or I don't know if they're regressing now. Yeah. Right? Because they've shown a little bit of both throughout the season, and that's kind of a first in the last few years that they've shown this many holes and weaknesses. Now, granted, they've had injuries for sure. Yeah. But we'll see, and that makes it interesting in the AL West. So
it does. Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah. Houston 7.
Yeah, Houston 7. 8, Philly. I think that's a perfect spot for them. I don't think they've been great, but I don't think they've played well enough to deserve to be kind of not a 9 or 10. Yeah. And 8, I think that's respectable for them. 7-3 are their last 10. Yeah. But they're competing with Atlanta. Yeah. If there's no Atlanta, they're the best team by far in that division.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, you know, playing Atlanta in their division, there's a few losses there that probably would have been wins if they're in other divisions. So right. You can't knock them for that.
Yep. And then 9, Texas, appropriate. Yeah. I mean, they've been so high this whole season. 1-9 in their last 10. They are flirting with a huge collapse of a season. I mean, if they somehow miss the playoffs, if this trend continues, I think they miss the playoffs. Yeah. Right? If they do, this compares to one of the greatest collapses that we've seen in our time. Only thing I can think of is those great Mets collapses in the late 2000s. Yeah. Those Philly years that they went back to the World Series and they went to the playoffs. Yeah. I don't think we've seen such a collapse. Obviously, season's not done yet, right? anything can happen in September, but they've been playing really bad. They've been playing really bad ball, especially for a team that's been offensively so good. So good, and then they went all in. They got a bunch of pitching. They got Jordan Montgomery. They got a bunch of other guys. They basically built this team to contend for a World Series, and on paper they do. Mm-hmm. And now we see they're 1-9 in their last 10.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how these teams, are composed, and they go out and they spend $700 million on
two guys,
free agents, and you see Texas do that, and now their winning isn't being sustained, and they're getting caught up. The Blue Jays only 2.5. Blue Jays are the odd man out in the playoff race in the AL. They're only 2.5 games back behind the Rangers and Astros. So, and the Rangers have the hardest strength of schedule in the AL West. So it would be interesting. They were so far ahead in the division race. Now a game back of the Mariners.
Teetering on falling out. And now you bring up the Blue Jays. That rounds out my number 10.
Okay.
I think that's just the next best team.
Yeah.
They've struggled, I think, offensively to find their consistent offense.
Yeah.
Pitching wise, they've actually been one of the better teams.
Yeah, I would say Toronto is probably one of the three best staffs in the league, because their top 4 pitchers, I believe, have all between a 3.2 and a 3.8 ERA, and that's a blessing to have as far as a pitching rotation goes.
Right. So Toronto 10. I do want to make honorable mention Cubs.
Okay. Yeah.
I did kind of flirt with the idea of maybe putting the Cubs at number 10, just the way they've been playing.
Yeah.
And they're still keeping themselves alive in the race for the not only the wild card, actually the division. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee's just been playing so good.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they continue that trend through September, that we do see the Cubs climb up in not only my opinionated power rankings, but in the power rankings in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you there. My kind of honorable mention would be the Diamondbacks. Actually, they've been playing pretty well recently. They started out the year pretty hot. And honestly, our friend Paul Sewald blew a couple of games after he went there. I think blew 3 games now, which is something that you didn't see from him all year. And they're sitting at 69 and 62. So they could have been right there with the Phillies at 72 wins, if not for a couple of miscues by Paul Sewald. So I think as far as the team goes, Corbin Carroll, great young player, right? Marte.
Yep, Marte's right over there. Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
Yeah.
Acquisition from Toronto in the offseason. Yeah. He's been great. He was an all-star.
Yeah.
Zach Gallen leading that pitching staff. So they've got a lot of young guys there. They're another young team. Yeah. I think baseball all around has got a lot of young teams and young players on teams that we're in the future. I think we're going to start seeing a shift in power. But for now, this is the top 10.
I mean, it's a really exciting era to be a baseball fan. I think we haven't seen this amount of superstars, big personalities, great talents in a long time. I mean, probably when we were kids in the 90s, yes, but after the steroid era ended, we kind of saw a dip in those big personalities in the 2010s a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect time for people our age
to
kind of see this flip the script. I think for me, my last childhood icon and that's retiring is Miguel Cabrera.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the last one. That's the close of that era.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna open the book to the brand new era of stardom in MLB. And that's super exciting to see. And it's exciting to see it at a different perspective now that we've watched baseball for so many years.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
Absolutely. And talking about when you were younger, do you ever do something boneheaded, something stupid, and your mom or your grandmother took out the slipper to whip you with it?
We didn't call it a slipper, but we called it La Chancla.
Chancla. Okay.
So we're going to move on. We're going to go to this is our created segment. Yeah. We call it La Chancla. And basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to be finding clips of really boneheaded mistakes throughout the week of baseball in that specific week, and just like any of us Latino people that we would know, any mistake in it, that's a chancla.
Yep, it is. So today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite players. His name is J.P. Crawford.
And he is our first chancla
award recipient.
Award recipient, yeah. We're going to have to get an award.
Yeah, we're going to have to. Maybe we'll get a slipper and like paint it gold or something. But yeah, let's...
Here we go. First chancla nominee and recipient. Little rundown of the situation. White Sox, Mariners, about a few days ago, extra inning baseball in Chicago. We've got, as we know, runners starting on second base. Nobody out. White Sox are up to bat, obviously. Here we go.
Nobody out. The situation here in the 10th inning. Throw to second base. Tim is off the bag. And then it goes sail by the third. Here comes Tim Anderson. The Sox win as the Mariners.
I don't know if you caught what happened here, but we'll see.
And then they didn't.
That's big chancla.
It's a chancla.
That's big chancla moment.
Yeah. Right here. Boom.
Chancla.
Right in the head.
Had to be a perfect throw, and it looked like it might have glanced off him. A win that should have been a win a lot easier.
Not even a one pitch thrown.
No.
That's it.
That's it.
One pitch thrown. Really breakdown of that play. I don't think. First of all, I almost think this is a half chancla on Cal Raleigh.
Yes, absolutely.
That ball just doesn't go to second base.
No.
That situation, that run cannot come across.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a situation to make a mistake. Yeah, they had him, but I really don't think that throw goes to second base.
Yeah.
Then, I think Eugenio Suarez kind of positioned wrongly.
Yeah.
Throw goes inside, goes off Tim Anderson's helmet.
Yeah.
Just mental errors there by the Mariners. Mental errors by your guy, J.P. Crawford.
I love JP. I think honestly best shortstop in the league right now.
Clearly not there.
No,
but,
not there. No.
So that's why he's our chancla recipient.
I think he is.
So.
Yes. Unfortunately. And since maybe you thought that was a cold take, we'll go into the last segment of the show. This is going to be hot and cold takes where we're going to say takes to each other and we'll respond whether or not we think it's a hot or cold take.
Okay.
Number one, Orioles. I think the Orioles will win the AL East.
I'll agree.
Okay.
I think so. I think it'll remain within 2 to 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it might get to 1, but I don't think it'll get close enough where Tampa will flip.
Yeah.
But I do agree that Baltimore will win the division.
Okay. All right.
Here's mine. Rangers missed the playoffs.
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, I was going to do that one next, but you know what? I think that might be a hot take. The Blue Jays, they're built for the end of the year, right? They're going to have a guy come up and pitch and give them a solid outing almost every single day. The Rangers, I don't know if they're built the same way. They're very hitting heavy, and that could lead to some cold streaks, right? So, I don't know. I think the way the Mariners are playing, the way the Astros should be playing, we should expect to be playing, you can never count the Astros out. I think the Rangers might be the odd man out at the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, they've just been playing so badly, and I think there's a lot of pressure, right? They traded for all these guys. They invested a lot of money in several key players on that team. Mm-hmm. And now that the Mariners are in it, now that Houston's in it, you have that looming end 10 game at the end of the season where the Rangers play the Mariners 7 times. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's a lot of pressure on this team that is expected to compete for a World Series. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really propelling them to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
Instead of propelling them to rise up to the occasion, I really do think they will spiral and not make the playoffs.
Okay, yeah. Here's one more from me. Luis Arias will win the NL MVP.
Wow. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I think he's had an incredible season hitting.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think that's all he has.
Yeah.
And if we really watch the batting title race, it is quickly diminishing.
Right. It has. It's
Acuna and Freeman are right there.
They are.
Right?
They are.
And Arraez, since the All-Star break, has struggled, and we say struggled, right, to keep up that, really what he had, that 400 batting average.
Yeah.
He's around 350 now, something like that. And the other two are around 333, closing on 340. I actually would even counter that and say that Arraez does not end up with the highest batting average in the NL.
And you know what? Actually, I just wanted to see what you would think. I would... That's hard. I think he does. I think he ends up with the highest batting average in the NL, but I don't think he wins the MVP.
No, I think the argument really is between Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah.
And my personal pick was a vote for Ronald Acuna Jr.
Okay. Well, there you go. There you have it. Those are our hot and cold takes. And that is it for our first episode of The Rundown. I'm Joe. This is Felipe. Thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time. We'll do this every about 3 to 4 days and get you updates. So have a great week.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Subscribe, comment, like our videos.
Yep.
Any of the support that we can get, we love. But we do this because we love baseball.
Oh yeah. And we this is what we do every day. We just talk to each other about baseball, and who knows? Heck, we're saying let's just film it, see what happens.
Yeah, and there's so much traffic. Seattle, we sit in the car all the time. This is like literally what we do.
Absolutely.
So why not share it with everybody else, right?
And then you guys can tell us what you think. You agree, disagree, we're idiots, we're not, let us know.
And let me know if I should change this hat, right? I don't know any Cubs fans, I'll keep it on, but if you don't like the Cubs and you want bad luck, they've been on a win streak with this hat on.
Yes.
So
yeah. We'll see you guys next time.